One of my favorite things about doing what I do is the back and forth that I have with all of you. If I hadn't checked the comments on the last episode, I wouldn't have been aware that livestock farms don't need to go on fertile land, and so I wouldn't have made the changes that you can see right here, where we happen to have way more farms than we did before. I also decided to spend a bit of time building a new suburb. This is Rhodes Ridge. It is similar to the suburbs that we've built before, and I decided to do it between episodes because I was feeling a little bit sick, didn't really feel like recording, and just really wanted to play some City Skylines 2, and so I built a suburb. We've also done this in a video before, so I didn't really want to retread that ground this early in the series, so we have another suburb. There's no buildings in it yet, no residential anyway. And then as a part of that suburb project, we went ahead and built a new bridge that just sort of goes around the edge of it here. It is another highway connection, which is absolutely something that the city needed. And honestly, the city needs a lot of things. It really, it's not in a good way right now. This whole issue with there not being enough customers has come back. We have a bunch of buildings being abandoned for a variety of reasons, admittedly. They're not happy about education. Some of them aren't happy about crime. These guys have polluted air as well and a lack of entertainment. We will deal with all of that. I think part of the problem really, as I've said before, is going to be getting an elementary school into this space. But before we build one out here, I want to work on Rhodes Ridge just a little bit because I did have an idea for this space that I thought was going to be really interesting, but it turns out I actually don't think it's going to work. But even before we get to that, I want to start by looking at these farms because like I said, I checked the comments in the previous episode and there were several of you that pointed out that the livestock farms don't need fertile ground. Now that makes sense. Of course it doesn't. You're not planting anything, but the reason I kept building it on fertile ground is because when you go into your specialized industries and it automatically selects the livestock farming, it highlights the fertile land out here. And so my brain is going, oh, well, then you have to put it there, right? In the same way that it highlights that land for the other types of farms as well. That same logic applies to the stone mines, by the way. The description says they can be set up anywhere to produce stone in the same way the livestock farms can be set up anywhere to produce livestock. But when you select it, it goes ahead and it highlights this space here, which in my head, I'm going, oh, you have to build it there, but you don't. It's a little, I don't want to say it's not intuitive. I get what it's doing, but you know, if I'm going to click these big buttons, I really should be reading the text is what I should be doing. But it's, you know, with these guys, it highlights the area. That's where the mistake came from. Anyway, I have been a bit of an idiot with this. There is a little bit of grain farming in the middle here where we do have fertile land, but the rest of this is livestock. Just because it is, really. And if we go and have a look at production, we do have a nice little bit of a surplus on livestock. We also have a surplus on the ore and on the coal as well. And we also have that same surplus on wood. We don't have a surplus on grain, which does have me considering swapping out some of these farms for grain farms. I think that might not be a terrible idea, but we'll maybe do that. You know what? I was about to say we'll do it later on. Everything I've talked about in this video so far has been like, we're not doing that right now. We're going to do it later. No, we're going to do it now. And very quickly, going to go ahead and get rid of this farm right here. And we'll replace it with a grain farm just because, I mean, we have the space for it. Not this entire bit of land is going to be fertile, but honestly, it'll be okay. You know, I've got to be honest, while I was building these farms, it was a really good time. One of my favorite things about City Skylines 2 at this point is the fact that it's out now and the fact that I can talk about it and the fact that I can go to my friends and be like, hey, I'm really not bored, but I'm doing this tedious thing in cities that I'm not recording. Do we want to sit and just talk a bunch of garbage while I'm doing this? And that's basically what I did when I was placing all these farms, and a bunch of people sitting on Discord were just talking about anything and everything. And it's so nice being able to do that with this game now. It's so nice being able to just record this and chill and have a good time, because for the last while, it's not been that. It's, you know, for the longest time, it's been, you know, you can't talk about it, not allowed to talk about it, we're not going to talk about it. And I've brought this up before. I've talked about the fact that I'm very appreciative of the relationship that I have with with Paradox and Colossal Order, and I'm very grateful for the support that all of you give to this channel that allows that relationship to even exist. But it's also, I do get a little, I don't want to say that I enjoy lying. I'm not gonna, I don't want to be like, I really like lying to all of you, but I know with Cities Skylines 1, there were a few times when I would be, maybe not videos, but I'd be streaming Cities Skylines over on my Twitch channel, and someone in the chat's gonna be like, so what do you think the next DLC is gonna be for Cities Skylines? And I would have to sit, because I would maybe know about the DLC, or I'd be playing it already, and I'd have to sit there and be like, man, I don't know. I couldn't possibly tell you. There's no way I would have, I wouldn't know. And then meanwhile, it's, I end the stream and go reinstall the DLC. And I'm like, man, hell, I couldn't possibly tell you. It was, I don't want to say it was like it wasn't a satisfying thing. It was just funny is how I saw it. It was always just really funny to have those opportunities. But it's been kind of the same with Cities Skylines 2, because I've known about this for about a couple of years. I played it back in 2021 in like the middle of summer. And since then, every now and then in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, on Twitch, Discord, and all of the socials, people are like, man, what would you like to see in a sequel? And I'm just like, no idea. Couldn't possibly imagine, because I didn't want to have the conversation, I'm getting really distracted here. You know what? Let's do one more of these farms. Yeah, let's flip one more into grain. Actually, let's look at production real quick and just see where we are. So the deficit on this, or the surplus on this, still exists. So yeah, let's flip one more of these into a grain farm. I just don't know where exactly the fertile land is. It looks like there's a good chunk of it up here. So I think this one might get flipped into a grain. I love the layout of this one, but I think we're going to flip it into a grain farm. Anyway, long story short about my story. Basically, I didn't want to make assumptions about Cities Skylines 2. I didn't really want to get into those conversations because I didn't want to risk like saying something and being like, oh, this would be a really cool feature. And then, forgetting that is a feature in the sequel because, I played it years ago, right? That was always a fear, was like, I don't want to talk about the sequel because I don't want to get in trouble and like leak something. So it's just nice being able to talk about it. It's nice being able to share it. It's nice being able to have these conversations in a video now as well. I'm really enjoying it. I don't think it's perfect. I've talked a couple of times already that I have my opinions about this as a sequel. There's certain things that I'm not thrilled about. The performance is kind of a big deal, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying building Linden as a city so far. Because for me, it feels like I've learned a lot in the first one, and I don't know, Linden doesn't feel like too bad of a city this time around, which is new for me. Usually my cities are hot garbage. This one's, mildly warmed garbage. And there we go. We have all of the farms in. We now have a surplus of grain as well, which is absolutely fantastic. I should probably take a moment to point out the fact that we have $75 million again. I've done nothing in terms of my economy other than change some taxes around. I started to vary the taxes here and there. So we're taxing the well-educated and the highly educated a little bit more than everybody else. And it is helping us out a little bit. This also paints a picture of where exactly the problems are in Linden, given the fact that there are so many people in the well and highly educated categories. So I'm going to say that highly educated is going to go up to 9%. I'm doing the same thing though with commercial. I've gone in here and for things like pharmaceuticals, I've cranked those up a little bit. Basically, I cranked the taxes for people that are already paying a lot of taxes. I don't know if that's good business, but it's what I did. So furniture has gone up to 10% and textiles has gone up a little bit as well because those were the best for industry. And then the offices, media is paying a bit more. Financial, honestly, 8%. We're going to do that. And software, you know what? We're going to do 8% there as well. Which means that we're now getting about $4 million a month in taxes. If I go to my budget, it's still negative 1.1 million, which is wild because I've somehow in the time between episodes made about $10 million, and I don't know how I've done it, but it is a thing that I've done. And it's not production. I'm pretty sure it's not production. It might be. I just don't know. I really don't know, because I don't know if it's tracked anywhere. That's the thing. I can go and look at these graphs. I can look at my budget. I can look at my income, which is actually, hold on a minute. Exported water, do we have, it's not gonna, I don't know. I don't understand, basically. I don't get it. I don't really get it, to be quite honest with you, but it's fine, right? It's okay. If we look at trade value, I don't know. What is this? Is that garbage? Wait a minute. I think garbage, there was a patch recently that might have fixed a few things. Yeah, garbage is now, I don't know, worth something. I don't know. I don't know where my money's coming from. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Now, a little something that I was going to do is get rid of the regional industry bus line. And if you don't remember, that is the bus line that goes from the center of the city all the way out to all of these different industries. I'm not going to delete it so much as I'm going to tweak it just a little bit. I'm actually just going to get rid of the stop here in the city, which is basically that one. Wait, I think I got rid of the wrong one. I might have got rid of the wrong, I don't know which one I got rid of there. I don't know if that's regional industry or not, to be quite honest with you. It looks like it is. It looks like it's the same color. Hold on a minute. Do I have to turn all of these off, don't I? Oh boy. Oh wait, no, I can just hover over it and it tells me it's a regional industry. I don't know what bus line I just got rid of out here then, but anyway. The regional industry line is going to be removed from here. And then what I'm going to do is just create another line that goes out to here. Except I'm kind of thinking it's going to go to here, basically, is where it's going to go to. And it's going to go back to the city. And this is a bit weird. It's a bit cheesy, but it's basically how we're going to get people from A to B, or from A to, well, they're trying to get to C, basically. They're going from here is A, this is B, everywhere else is C. So we can bring people out here. They're just going to have to get on another bus, basically. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm really hoping I can bring the number of buses down on this line. It's down to 11, which is still way too many. It's just way too many buses for that line. But what I'm hoping I can do is then go and look at bus line 12, which is the new one we just created, and bring that down to like 3. So I think we're still using 14 buses. I'm pretty sure we were using 14 buses to begin with, but my hope is that this will just work back. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's what we're going to try and do. I'm going to bring this right down to like $2 because I'm nice like that. And if I look at my bus lines overall, we're going to need to rename some things. So this is line 11. This is regional industry loop is what it's going to be. And then line 12 is going to be just regional industry, and we'll change it to number 12. So that'll be fine, I guess. I should probably also make it a similar color, which is right about there-ish. And I don't know if that's good. That's probably my worst bus line decision I've made so far, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And so now I want to come back to Rhodes Ridge, and I want to talk a little bit about something I had in mind for this space that I thought was going to be a good idea, but it turns out is not going to be a good idea. The idea was pretty simple. It was basically residential zoning, and it was going to be a mix of European and North American low-density residential zoning, which sounds like it would be cool, but then I noticed something, and I'll show you exactly what I noticed because a picture is worth 1,000 words. We'll go ahead and say that this one is going to be North American. We'll go ahead and say that this one is going to be European, and that'll be fine. We'll let those build, and while they're building, I'm going to come over to this half of the space, and I'm just going to fill it with European-style residential zoning, which, to be clear, I was going to do a split, but this entire thing is going to be European now because just the way the North American ones look is I don't love them. And so while all of that builds, here is my comparison, and it might not be immediately obvious what the problem is. Now, let's keep in mind, Kent Street here has the North American buildings. Coleridge Street has the European ones. If we look at it from directly above and you just look at it for a second, you'll start to notice some key differences. Basically, it's the positioning of the buildings, and it is just the amount of concrete in the North American assets. Just most of these tiles are just gray. They're just, I mean, this one, don't get me wrong, you zoom in, the texture on the gravel around the building is beautiful. The asset itself is beautiful, even if I'm not a huge fan of the stilts and the, you know, the look of it in general, but it's so gray. I mean, this one's great. This one's not so bad, but most of these are just so gray. And that's not a great look from above. If we go and look over towards Linden Crest, and even these spaces here, yes, there's a lot of gray, but the backs of the assets are nice and green. They have gardens, they have sheds, they have greenhouses, they have trees. And when those grow, it's gonna nicely enclose my path in here. The North American assets, unfortunately, don't really have that. Some of them do, but a lot of them are like this. They're pretty bare. They don't have a lot of trees at the back, and the buildings are further back than on the European ones as well. The European ones are very front and center. They're right up on the road with a nice big back garden. The North American ones are kind of the opposite, and they just have so much, there's just so much of them that's paved. So imagine essentially an entire neighborhood that was just this. I don't love it. So for that reason, essentially, we're going to be going with the European style for the low density residential in all of this space as well. I really wanted to use these North American buildings in here because I have seen the comments so many times complaining about how repetitive the European buildings can be at times. And I do agree, they absolutely can be, but I do think I prefer them to the North American assets. I also don't want anything on that road right there. And while I'm doing all of this, I kind of need to remember to put some services in here. So once we're done with all of this zoning, which we're about to be, we absolutely need to cover this place in a good few services. We also have some commercial in here. You've probably noticed already that there is a decent chunk of commercial. We'll go ahead and get all of that zoned. And I think I'm going to save this space for a police department. And I think we should probably... Oh, I've already done it. Okay. I've already got a little firehouse over here. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I've set this up to handle Rhodes Ridge and Linden Crest. So these two neighborhoods. I didn't tell it to go to Blackwood because Blackwood does have a firehouse, but I do think a little police station right in here might be a good little spot for this neighborhood. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves a teeny tiny little police station. Do I want to put it up against the parking lot? I think I kind of do. So I'm going to take these paths just out of here, and we'll keep that right about there. We'll have this guy right up against the parking lot, which is going to mess with that house, which is honestly okay by me. We'll bring this back a little bit further, and we'll just get ourselves a path that sort of goes alongside these buildings. So we want to go to about here. We want to come down to about here. And do I want it to go right around the building? I don't need it to, but I think I will. Just because, again, it gives us kind of a nice little border on this whole thing. So we'll bring this guy out. We'll go for a continuous curve. We'll turn off our guidelines. And we'll just go for... You know, I don't want it to go to the corner. I think I want it to go to about there. Maybe a little bit weird, but I kind of like it. And then for this guy, we'll go and do something like this. And I wonder, can I do the same in the other direction? I absolutely can. There we go. So that's perfect. That gives us some policing for the neighborhood, plenty of parking lots as well. And we can say that this guy is going to operate in Linden Crest and in Rhodes Ridge. And that should keep us pretty good. There's going to be a lot more building in here. There's so many people going to be living here. I am really excited about it. We also have a new mansion. We have the Sculptor Mansion. And you know what? That reminds me, we should play around a little bit with some signature buildings in here because we haven't done that yet. And I also forgot to do anything on these cul-de-sacs up here. So let's take a look. We have the Pop Musician Mansion, which is +2 well-being within 500 meters. The Theater Actor Mansion, which is +4 well-being within 1 kilometer. And the Sculptor Mansion, which is +6 well-being within 1.5 kilometers. So what I think I'm going to do is get this guy, the Sculptor Mansion, and I think I like the idea of putting it right down here because that way, that's a really cool looking building actually. But that way, yes, it's a little weird just having this completely different house, but that way the effect of this thing is going to be felt across Linden Crest and across a bunch of these guys. And honestly, what we could do is say that the theater actor mansion could go, it could go right in the middle if we wanted it to, but I might spread these out a little bit. I might say that the theater actor mansion can go over in this district. So we'll take out some of you guys, and can I get it right in here? Absolutely. Again, a little bit weird, completely different style of building, but again, it's got some benefits. It'll keep these guys nice and happy. And then the pop musician, honestly, we'll put him over here. So right out here in this little neighborhood, we'll go for, I kind of like that spot. Honestly, I think that's a good spot for it. It isn't necessarily going to be completely private. He's going to have some neighbors, but that's probably for the best. So we'll go ahead and just fill up all of these spaces. We'll let all of this build. And I guess we should also look at some public transport for this space as well, which honestly, I'm very tempted to run some trams out here. I think that would be kind of cool, but I'm probably going to stick with buses. And I think what I'm going to try and do is have the yellow bus line that goes around the two existing suburbs cover this one as well. So we'll get ourselves a stop right about there. The coverage on these bus stops is pretty substantial, so I don't need them to be crazy close together. I do want them to be relatively close together, but I don't need them to be crazy close together. So that's a pretty good spread. We'll bring this bus line up to, let's say, about here as well. And you know what I'm doing? Let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm putting them on the wrong side of the road is what I'm doing. I'm building these bus lines as though this is a left-hand drive traffic city, which it absolutely isn't. My genius is frightening, is what it is. My genius is absolutely frightening. I also remember I don't need to bulldoze these guys. I can just move them to the other side of the road, which is exactly what I'm going to do. We'll put that one right there. Those guys aren't going to be happy, I'm sure, about a bus stop right in front of their house, but they'll manage. They'll live. We'll put this one right about here. And did I place another one? I absolutely didn't. I don't think I did. I absolutely did. Okay. Let's just move this guy to the other side of the street. Why can't I select him? There we go. To the other side of the street. We'll put it right in front of the path, actually, for that one. And so that gives us, I think, 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. It absolutely is. We'll get ourselves another one right at the end of this path, right next to the commercial zoning that we have around here. We'll go a little further down. We'll go for right in front of this guy's house. And I want to say that we don't need any more. So what I think I'll do is create a new bus line that goes around Rhodes Ridge. And that'll be sort of a bit of a shuttle, basically, that gets people from A to B, and that's fine. And then this yellow line is one that I want to play around with a little bit. So what this line does, if we highlight it, is it comes in to Blackwood Croft. It goes through the middle of Blackwood Croft. And honestly, we could potentially, if we wanted to, bring it up to, no, we can't do that. Never mind. It goes into Blackwood Croft. It comes out, goes through Linden Crest, and goes back to the rest of the city. Although it does look like it loops around in kind of a, oh no, it loops around like that because it comes in, goes to, oh, it should be going to Linden first. That would make a lot more sense if it went to Linden first. Okay, well, it's not going to do that right now, but that's okay. So what we'll do is bring this guy in. We'll take it to here. And then we'll go ahead and bring it sort of up to here as well. So it comes into this district. It stops here. It stops up there. I did kind of want it to stop by the shops, but it doesn't have to. And then it crosses over into Linden Crest, which I think is totally okay. In fact, we could probably say that it's going to stop here as well. So it stops in front of the post office, cuts down through Linden Crest. It has a couple of stops there and then heads back to the city, which I think is solid. So that one bus line is going to cover the suburbs. And then we have another bus line covering Rhodes Ridge and going around like that. And I think we also have this purple bus line that is not... Ooh, that's interesting. I thought the purple line looped around Linden Crest, but apparently it doesn't. And so now that Rhodes Ridge is essentially done, I want to turn my attention a little bit more towards education because it is still a bit of a problem. Because if we have a look, we currently have a capacity of 4,500 Sims in elementary schools. We have 16,800 that are eligible, almost 17,000 actually that are eligible. Now, With that said, you don't need to completely max out your elementary school education. You don't need to necessarily max out any education if you don't want to. There's a balance that you can strike in City Skylines 2, but this is not a good ratio. So I do want to get another elementary school, and I was thinking I was going to build it up here, but I want to get some tiles here before we do that because I will have to do some terrain editing. And then I got thinking about this space down here and how this is probably just going to be more suburb. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? Do I want to sort of bring something just off this one roundabout? And then I thought, well, we kind of have this road here, Woodland Street, cutting nicely through Blackwood Croft. So why don't we go in, take out a couple of buildings here, and just continue that street? That's absolutely an option. So we'll go and basically just do that. So a nice sort of straight road out of here, and it's going to sort of follow the curvature of the bottom of these hills and then loop back towards this roundabout. And then I noticed when I was looking around, there's a really nice bit of flat land right here that would be perfect for an elementary school. So we're going to come off this roundabout. This is going to be a little bit of an incline, which is honestly not the end of the world. We'll go a little bit further with it up to about there. And I want this to go just a little further because what I'm going to do is put a roundabout at the end of this road because we are going to have an elementary school in this space. And then what we can do is come off of here with a little section of straight. You know what? We'll put the roundabout just back there. We'll come off of here with a little section of straight road. Not that much. I got rid of the, really? We're really going to be, okay. All right. I see what we're doing, City Skylines. I see what we're doing today. You know what? Where does this flat, it begins, about there. Should be fine. We'll put the roundabout in. And then what I want to do is a little bit of straight road, something like that. And I want to get some curves going here. So we'll go for a nice continuous curve. Not 100% sure how this is going to look or behave when it comes down to it. But basically, I'm following the contour lines as much as I possibly can. Going to try and stay on the contour lines for a decent distance here. Maybe a little bit of a straight road here. Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. It does need to loop over and connect with this guy. So we'll bring it up a little bit. We'll bring this guy sort of up a little bit as well to about there. We'll switch over to a simple curve. We'll get our guidelines. And then this should, by all means, just connect something like that, which I think looks, this needs to be more of a curve in here. But other than that, I think this is, I mean, it's a road, right? It's not rocket science. It's not high art, is it? So we'll turn this guy into more of a curve, and then I think it'll be okay. And wouldn't you know that the first thing I do with this entire space is add a few more cul-de-sacs right here, sort of mirroring what's going on across the highway just a little bit. This road, let's not forget, is going to be for an elementary school, but the rest of this is just going to be more residential zoning. But before we do that, I want to put the paths in here, and I want to put some trees in here as well. And I think this time around, I'm going to go a little bit lighter on the trees because it does sort of feather out as it goes up the hill. I'm still going to be pretty strong with them. There's still going to be a good amount of trees in here, especially the older trees, because they end up being absolutely huge. But I want to get some chestnut trees through here. We're just going to do sort of one pass of each of them. We'll do some oak trees just like that. We'll get some of the spruce trees in here as well. And then a little bit of a pass of pine trees just like that. Now, some of this space is going to be relatively open. There are going to be more sort of park spaces like this and like this in here. But I want to go a little bit heavier with some of these bushes just because they do a really, really good job of making things look a little bit more overgrown. They give it a little bit more texture, and it just helps things out that little bit more. So we'll go ahead. Oh, that's trees. That's not what I want. I want some bushes right there. We'll go for these cultivated bushes. We'll go for a few of these guys, which I don't think I've put too many of anywhere. And you know what? We'll go for these ones too, because I don't think I've played around too much with those flower bushes either. So something a bit like that will be perfectly fine. There's kind of a nice variety of things going on here. And once those trees grow, it will look that little bit better. But when it comes to the paths, my main thing with these is to try and make the space relatively walkable. That's something that I'm really enjoying with all of these neighborhoods. And so I pretty much just turn off all of my snapping modes and I use the continuous curve, and I just come in something kind of like this, and we'll cut through to here. And then I like doing these little sort of smooth transitions. So if we do this and then we come over this way and do the same thing, you get this going on. I've done this a lot in a lot of these different neighborhoods. And something, just sort of going back to what I said about the North American style versus the European style, something I was a little worried about at first with these neighborhoods was putting these paths in here and getting rid of a lot of the trees between the buildings. But because the European houses already have a bunch of trees and nature around the backs of them, this actually doesn't end up being the worst idea in the world. You can kind of get really close to them. You can get the paths right up through the middle, and it honestly doesn't end up looking too bad. So that's kind of what we're going to do. We're going to bring this guy over to here as well, and we'll bring it up sort of a nice little bit of a straight line there. I don't love doing straight lines on these paths, but again, not necessarily the end of the world. And then very simply, we'll come down through here with a bit of a curve. We'll curve it a little bit sharper and sharper again. And this is basically what I do everywhere. This is basically how all these neighborhoods come to be. It's just a whole lot of paths and a whole lot of going to the roads and trying to make the place as nice to be in as it can possibly be. It's all about letting people get from A to B without having to use a car, essentially. And then something else I'm trying to do is weave in and out of a lot of the trees so that we're not getting rid of too many of them as these paths come through here. So this one looks a little bit weird right now, but if you notice, we have some trees that'll grow up around this. And so once they do that, it'll make a little bit more sense. It'll be as though the path was built, you know, after the trees happened to grow and they didn't want to just chop all of these things down. We can also do another one of the little curves here just to get this transition to be all that much nicer. So you can kind of walk right around and do your thing. I think we could maybe get a little something in here, but I don't think we necessarily need it. I do want to put something through here. And I don't love that it does look like I'm going to have to get rid of some trees unless I sort of chop away at the zoning. I mean, to be fair, this tree is going to go even if I do avoid taking it out now. So I wonder if I could sort of cut through like this, take out that chunk. Can I get between these trees? I absolutely can. That's perfect. So, oh wait, no, that tree's gone. Well, that's a bit of a shame. We'll do something like that. And I guess what I can do is go in here and just place like an alder tree or 2 or 3, I guess. I don't know if that one's actually going to grow. We'll put one like here as well. So that way, eventually they'll grow and look the way I want them to. And so with the paths done and the trees done, let's go ahead and get some low density European residential zoning in here. And then we're going to get some kind of elementary school just over there. You know, I've got to say, I was a little bit nervous about extending this suburb, but I kind of love how it's turned out. I really, really do. And I'm still going to stand by the fact that the European low density residential zoning just looks so much better. I've seen a few people, I mean, these ones have a lot of concrete as well, but I've seen a few people on a few different forums talking about the fact that the North American assets do have a little bit too much concrete. So hopefully that's something we'll see change up eventually. And I know there are, what is it, region packs that are coming out for City Skylines 2 at some point. So I'm excited to see how those go as well. But for now, I want to turn my attention to this area in here because I want to get my hands on another elementary school. So if we have a bit of a look, we have some flat space to play with right about here. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to flatten just a little bit more, just these little bits right about there. I'm just going to bring those down. And that's about all the terraforming I really want to do. I don't want to go too crazy with this because we did get a little bit crazy with it in the last episode. And I'm also thinking that I might try and just do this relatively simply. I might not get too carried away with this because I don't think there's too much point in getting carried away with this. So I almost wonder if just doing like a little one-way loop. So go 56 meters there, 56 meters there, bring this guy back a little bit, something like this, and kind of down. I wonder if that's where we should just put the elementary school. Just put it right at the end of that road. It goes actually nicely right at the end of that road. I don't mind that at all. I'm going to pause while I do this though, because I do want more things around this. And I do think this road would need to come out just a little bit further. So out to about there, up to there and across, and then same story down here. Obviously we're going right out to the edges because then I can bring some pedestrian roads back And the other thing I like about this is that I can do some little poplar trees in this middle space. But like I said, what I'm thinking here is that we're going to, for one, expand this because naturally that's what we're going to want to do. And then we could do some children's clinics as well, plus 5% health for students. I think, oh, do I want to get asymmetrical with this? I sort of do. What does this do? This is plus 10% well-being within 300 meters, plus 5% well-being for students for the, that's for the playground. So I wonder if it's stackable, but I think we will go for a bit of asymmetry on this. I just don't know necessarily what way to do the asymmetry, whether to do it on this side or that side. Which one looks better from a distance to me? I think this one. I think towards the highway is kind of where I want that to be. I'm going to put the playground sort of in here. And I could do another one of those, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with sort of the asymmetry of the whole thing. And I could stack these, but again, I'm not necessarily going to do that. The reason I wanted to run some pedestrian paths back here though, or pedestrian streets back here, is because I do like the idea of playing around with some of the large sports parks that we have. So we have the American football field, a little bit too, well, actually, I was going to say a little bit too big, but I think it is a little too big for this. The soccer field, on the other hand, is actually kind of perfect. If I brought a little pedestrian street just down here, I could go ahead and put the soccer field right about there. And I don't love that, to be quite honest. I think what might look better is if I bring the pedestrian street sort of back to here, and then we flip this guy around the other way, get rid of you. That leaves us this open space to play with. I can do some landscaping in there. We can get some nice little paths and all that into that space as well. I would appreciate a gap between this part of the building and the soccer field so that we can continue some paths through there. But I'm not going to let it be the end of the world. I don't think it has to be the end of the world. We could, of course, also put some of these guys in here. Maybe a little tennis court in one of these spaces wouldn't be so bad. I don't hate the idea of some tennis courts there, but again, it's not creating symmetry, but it's creating a very, very rigid line right there that I don't like. So we're going to get rid of you. Would it be worth doing a little basketball court in here? Is that something I think we can get away with? I mean, we can get away with it. Does it look good though? No, I actually don't think it does. I think I want to keep this space open. I want to do some landscaping, and I think that's kind of how we're going to do this. I'm also going to take this road out of here and just bring it in here as far as it needs to go. Actually, looking at it, we might need to do a tiny little bit of landscaping right there just to level things out. We'll bring this guy to here, bulldoze you. And do I want to do parking? I feel like we should have some kind of parking. Do we have the space for it? We kind of do. So maybe this road should be turned into an actual road. And we can do a little bit of parking on it so that people can actually, you know, park their cars here. So this would be essentially just a two-way road. We could do something like that. This can stay some kind of pedestrian street. We'll do a little bit of parking off here on the side. And again, that's going to feed into the asymmetry of the whole thing, which I do really appreciate. Do I want a large parking lot? Do we need a large parking lot? I don't know that we do. I don't think we do. I think just a regular large parking lot is probably more than enough for this whole thing. So, well, it is 1,500 students. Maybe we do go for the very large one. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to be filled up anyway. So it doesn't really matter. I think what we'll do is we'll go for the very large one. And I think I'm going to just sort of change up this road ever so slightly so that we can go ahead and have a node right about here. And then if I just upgrade you, that looks okay. And I think if I put some paths around this sort of the way I did for this one, I think it'll look even better. And so that means tearing out a whole bunch of these trees, which is totally fine by me. We'll push all of these guys right back like this, and then we'll go in and just figure out where these paths are going to go. So I think what we'll do is leave a gap of sort of 2-ish around the parking lot. I can't get this to be exact, but honestly, that's probably fair enough. In fact, I think I can get it to be exact. That's one that's, oh, hold on. Is that one? I don't know. I don't know what distance I need this to be. I think about there. Yeah, that looks pretty solid. So a gap of about 2 around the parking lot. I think we'll stick to that gap of 2 sort of around the entire thing, just to give it sort of a solid footprint. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't know if I want to do a curve here. I think I might, just because I think that's going to look cool from a distance. Yeah, I like that. I like that it follows the road. And then for this guy, can I put a roundabout on a pedestrian street? I can. Ooh. I don't know why I've never tried doing this before, but this might actually look kind of interesting. This might be kind of a cool way to sort of cap this thing off. So we'll go to there. I don't know if that's going to be far enough. It isn't. So we need to go a little bit further. So we need to go to, instead of here, we want to go to here and then a little roundabout. That looks adorable. I love that. In fact, I want to go just one little bit further. I know I'm being really, really picky about this, but if I can go to about here, that's in line with the back of that building down there. So this roundabout, if I can bring a couple of paths out, that is going to look amazing. That is going to look so good. So we'll bring this path over the way we have been doing. And what way am I going to do this? So we don't want it to snap to the sides of buildings. That's 1. That's 2. So I think that's about the distance there that we want to be from the side of this. Oh man, I'm getting really, really precise with this and I don't need to be, but I'm enjoying it. I'm not going to lie. And there we go. We have ourselves a little elementary school. It just so happens that I may or may not have forgotten to detail the little bit in the middle of the elementary school. So very quickly, let's just do that. There was me zooming out all proud of the little elementary school that I've built. I turn off the HUD, getting ready to be like, oh, there we go. There's my elementary school. And wouldn't you know, I've forgotten to do this bit in here, which honestly, it was never going to be super detailed anyway. It's mostly just going to be like this. We'll put like a pine tree in there. We'll maybe do, I don't know, some birch trees in the corner just to be kind of fancy about it or something. I don't know. We'll do a little something like this, just to make the space detailed. Once the trees all happen to grow, it'll be lovely. Is what it'll be. There we go. So now the elementary school is done and it's full, because of course it is. If we have a look at education across the board, we now have 6,000 students enrolled in elementary school. 17,239 are eligible. So this is great. It's fantastic. I actually really love my suburbs. I love that they're about the size of the city, as they should be. I also actually do really like the elementary schools sort of flanking both of the suburbs here. That's pretty cool. I really do like that, actually. I've also managed to go ahead and get this bus line here to come through, which is great news. Although I think what I'm going to do is add a couple of bus shelters to this road here. So we'll do one there, we'll do one there, we'll do one there. And I think a few different buses getting us around these spaces might not be the worst thing in the world. We have got this purple line, which is largely doing its thing, which is fine by me. What direction does it go? It goes that way. So if I wanted that purple, I don't know how we're going to get that purple line to go down there without sort of weirdly looping back on itself, which is unfortunate. I guess we could. I mean, we have the yellow line. It has a stop right there. I don't think we need stops in there. I think we'll have the buses. I'll have the bus stops there just in case, but I don't think we urgently need them. What I am going to do though, is I'm going to throw a couple of taxi stands around just because we don't have too many of these guys. So we'll do one there. We'll do one there. We'll do one about, say, there. And I think that'll be pretty solid. We don't have taxi stands in a whole lot of this space though. So we'll come down here and we'll put one by these guys, maybe do one on that side of the road by the commercial zoning there. We can come over this way and do the same thing sort of here if we really wanted to. We've got commercial zoning over here that we can play around with. So maybe a little taxi stand on the other side of the road from the bus stop wouldn't be the worst idea in the world for that commercial zoning. We have commercial zoning in here. We can do a taxi stand there if we want to. And we have commercial zoning up here, and maybe a taxi stand sort of opposite that bus stop as well would be a bit of an idea, just to get people using the taxis that little bit more. Because honestly, public transport, I mean, there's 31,000 people using my trams. There's 30,000 people using my buses. There's 20,000 using the trains, which is kind of wild. There's 82,514 people per month using public transportation. There's 84,000 people in my city. So public transport, whether or not my layout is particularly good, it is effective in Linden, which I'm very happy about. And so with this elementary school done, it's probably not a bad idea to head back up this way to see what these guys are complaining about, because there are a few chunks in here that are no longer built up, such as these guys who have poor education, lack of entertainment, high pollution, high noise pollution, unreliable healthcare, and polluted air. Now, the polluted air would make sense. The wind is kind of vaguely blowing in that direction, so that does check out, which isn't good. That's something I kind of forgot about. But what I think we can probably do is come into this space and basically just build ourselves another school, because that's what they want. They want education. They want it to be nearby. And so that's what I'm going to give them. They're going to get another elementary school in here. And I think I'm going to use this entire space for it. So I'm going to just basically clear out a bunch of these trees. And I'm going to try to create something that's going to be... I want to build something that's going to be kind of pleasant. So let's, for one, use a pedestrian street. And I would love to build it here, but I don't know if having this intersection that close to the train crossing is a good idea. Although the train crossing is not permanent. The train crossing is going to go away eventually. So actually, I am kind of willing to do this. We'll go ahead and bring this guy up to about here. And I'm not super worried about what way the zoning behaves, because we are going to be putting an elementary school out here. It's not really the end of the world. So we'll do something like this. And that is completely fine. The elementary school itself, part of me wants it to face the avenue. Part of me wants it to be set back a little bit. So I think we'll set it back, and I think we'll do this. We're kind of creating just a very pedestrianized space, which I'm okay with. And then for the school itself, it's not going to sit perfectly centered in this tile, which I guess is just the way of things. So we'll put it a little bit closer to the... We'll do it a little bit closer to the pedestrian side of things, because then we have 4 tiles in here and 4 tiles in front to play with in terms of detailing. We'll pause the game. We'll expand it. We'll do... Do I want to do one of these? Do I want to do asymmetry again? I think we're going to do asymmetry, but if I do this, it's going to be the exact same level of asymmetry. So we'll do it on this side this time. We'll do the little playground kind of in the middle, which I like the idea of, actually, because if I put trees around it, then the playground's kind of enclosed, and I think that sort of makes sense. But I'm wondering, can I get away with something like a soccer field down here? I actually almost could. I could get it this way around, which I'm not against doing. And the American football field is way too big. The community pool is whatever. I think the soccer field is going to be the way to go, because that is going to be good for everybody in all of those neighborhoods. It is on a main road, which I don't love, but it is more asymmetry, and that's sort of what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to make you watch this entire process, because we've built elementary schools so many times before at this point. But this is essentially the layout. Now all I need to do is throw some paths in here and get some public transport in here and get some detailing in here with some trees, some landscaping, and all that good stuff. So very quickly, and for the last time today, let's get it done. And once again, there we go. We have ourselves a little elementary school. I would imagine it's going to fill up pretty quickly, which it absolutely is doing. But I also want to bring some trams down here, because I think that would be kind of cool. I also really want to see if I can bring trams over the top of some train tracks, which I assume I can. I'm curious to see if it actually is something I can do, and it absolutely is. I'm also sort of thinking the trams can kind of go this way. We can kind of have them be like a little one-way thing going around this entire space, coming back up here and coming back out onto this road so that it loops around the elementary school in what I think is a pretty interesting way. It also happens to mean that I do need more tram tracks going this way, which is whatever, but that's totally fine. And it does mean that the tram stop for this space could essentially be here. Now, this one is close enough that we don't necessarily need to do a dedicated tram stop for the elementary school, but I'm going to, because I think it would be a good idea. I've also apparently missed a little section of one-way tram track there. I don't think I've missed any more, which is good. So now what we'll do is we will grab this waypoint and bring it up to here. This guy loops around beautifully now. We're going to stop here. And I doubt we're going to need a tram stop on the way back here. I think we're probably fine with not having people get on a tram here and come back this way. We'll leave that be for now. And I just think that's interesting looking. I just think that's going to be good. The only thing I think it's missing are some poplar trees lining the other side of the train track. But I'm really excited to see how this looks when the trees come in, because those are alder trees around the outside. And I've went with those because they're bigger when they, they're huge, huge trees. So they will provide a degree of privacy to the back of the school, which I think makes sense. And I'm excited to see how it looks. It's just going to be a while before we get to see how it looks, because they take about a year to fully grow. And I should probably mention, and I think I mentioned it earlier in this episode, and I know I've definitely mentioned it before, this train track is not permanent. It is going to be going away. I think I mentioned in the last episode that today's episode was going to be focused on getting rid of this industry. Obviously, plans have changed ever so slightly, and we're focusing a little bit more on education. But I do think that's good. I don't think it's a terrible idea to focus a little bit on education around here. I also want to see, are you all going for, you're not all going for a tram. What are you doing? So you're going to stop there. A few people get off, which is fine. There's honestly a good number of people walking around this space, which does make me really, really happy. So hopefully the trams are going to get some good use coming out here. Hopefully a lot of people going to the elementary school will use it. And if we look at education overall, we're up to 7,500 people. There's still 10,000 people that could be going to elementary school who are not going to elementary school. But hopefully we're going to see a bit less of this. I mean, this guy's complaining about small homes. That's kind of the big thing. Poor education services is, I'm pretty sure that is just a lack of elementary schools. That's the only thing that we have a deficit of. Everything else is perfectly fine. So, I mean, we've added 2 of them today. That's plus 3,000 capacity. It was plus 1,500 in the last episode. So we have done a lot for elementary school capacity. I think it's just going to be a case of waiting around to see the effects of that. I do, however, also want to take a little bit of a look and see how we're doing in terms of both death care and healthcare, because I have seen some complaints here and there about ambulances. And I mean, coverage wise, we have a little clinic here, a clinic there, hospital here, clinic, or rather hospital up there as well. So health coverage is okay. I don't think we need a clinic out in this space, although we could get one behind the elementary school if we wanted to. Fire coverage is lacking a little bit out that way. It's also massively lacking down here, which is interesting to see. I suppose it is about the furthest point away. It's actually right in the middle between those 2 fire stations, but that should be all right. I think we might want to throw a little firehouse just out this way, just to give us a bit of coverage. I also love that these trees have come in. All of these pine or spruce trees around the parking lots was kind of a, it was not a bad idea. Not the worst idea. Anyway, let's get rid of those buildings. Let's go ahead and get ourselves a little firehouse just into the space right about there. And I'm not really thinking I'm going to continue some trees around the back of this thing. Although I could, if I wanted to, get a few little, I don't know, birch trees around. I could do more spruce trees, some pine trees. I don't know, some alder trees maybe, just to surround this thing with something. Because I don't necessarily want buildings right up against. Well, do I? Maybe I do. Maybe I do want some buildings right up against this. These were European mixed use housing, so we'll do this. Gonna be a bit of a gap at the back of it, but honestly, that's okay. And that should give us decent fire coverage. We'll actually upgrade it as well, just so it's more of a full building right there. And that's hopefully gonna be enough to keep these guys happy. I have seen complaints about crime. I have seen some issues here and there. I mean, these guys, what are you complaining about? Lack of entertainment. That was the other thing that they're not happy about out this way. A lack of entertainment. I wonder, should we maybe ditch the mixed use stuff that we have going on here and instead do some EU high density business? Might not be a terrible idea, especially since we do have a number of abandoned buildings. So let's tear these guys out and let's tear you out of there, and that'll be fine. And we'll go and just say that all of this is going to be EU commercial zoning, high density commercial, and that'll be, wow, they built quickly. They don't look very European. I've got to be honest with you. By no means do they look European. I now kind of regret my decision to do that. So I'll tell you what I'll do instead. I'm going to tear these guys out, and we're going to replace these sort of buildings at the end of this neighborhood with these guys instead, because it's going to look better. I don't, there's nothing about those buildings screams European to me. So we'll do this, and then these guys can go back to being, I don't really know, EU medium density housing or something like that. I mean, it's a main road, so maybe we want to do the mixed use stuff, even though it's not necessarily going to build anytime soon. Or maybe it is. Okay, well, what do I know? Seriously? This guy's complaining about not enough customers. He hasn't even, you don't even have a building. You don't even have a building, mate. I don't know what you're complaining about. You don't have a building to have there. I mean, you do now, but man, I gotta be honest. They look, they are European, right? Yeah. Those are nothing about those. I mean, commercial buildings in general do look somewhat samey, but this is, I don't know that I would not be happy. Like, if you imagine you bought this, like one of these guys, 40 years ago, you're enjoying, you're about to retire or something. Well, you're maybe retired, just recently retired. You're enjoying your wall-to-wall row house that was built 100 years ago. The buildings across the street get knocked down, and what do they replace them with? That. Just that. I would not be happy. I would not be happy about that. Oh, no, that's interesting. I didn't realize that I had maxed out my education budget. That's, wow. So what does this do? The service budget affects service building efficiency. Efficiency affects the graduation chance of the students. Efficiency also affects the citywide effects of the technical university, blah, 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 blah. So a higher education budget doesn't necessarily, hold on a minute. If I bring this back down to 100%, I'm now only losing $1 million. Do these guys have fewer? No. So basically, average time to graduation is now 7 months. It was 6 months with the higher budget. Interesting. So there's not necessarily, okay, let me just double check that. So 150%, still 7 months. It might go down, it might go up. I don't know. I'm gonna keep that 100%, I think. I don't think we want to be doing all that much money into education, especially since we're not doing all that well in terms of money. Police and administration is 1.1 million. It's a lot of money. I mean, I don't know that we need to be going any higher or lower than that. I think we're doing okay there. Healthcare and death care, honestly, we could, I mean, it's a lot of money, but I think we'll leave it be for now. I think the fact that I can look at my budget and say that it's only -1 million now is it's kind of nice. Now, something I'm noticing in a lot of my houses is that there is an unreliable mail service. Now, in saying that, there might be a bug with the postal service in City Skylines 2. I don't remember if it's been fixed yet. There's been a couple of patches since the game came out. I don't remember for the life of me. But if we look at things, we are apparently processing absolutely no mail. We do have some post offices. We absolutely do. But I'm looking at these guys and they have storage capacity, but they don't have sorting speed. So I'm wondering if we need a post sorting facility in order to actually process the mail that we have coming in. And so I got thinking that we have this space here along this new little highway, and this is relatively flat. It could be better, but it's relatively flat. So why don't we do what we did out this way and build ourselves just a little post sorting facility? We also have this space here right by the highway, which honestly, I don't hate. It is actually flat from where I flattened things for this interchange, but I don't know. I like this space here. I'm also thinking that this whole space will get flattened eventually for an airport, but don't tell anybody that I told you that. Anyway, let's flatten this out a little bit and we'll build ourselves some kind of post sorting facility right in this space. I don't actually know how big this thing happens to. Ooh. Okay, it's a bit of a chunker. It is a bit of a chunker. Okay, I'm glad I gave myself a good amount of space here. Can I get a roundabout? Actually, there is kind of perfect. We'll go a little bit bigger. Doesn't need to be huge, but it does need to have some chunk to it. Maybe a little bit bigger. again, just because I can. And then in terms of the road coming off, it's going to be relatively simple. We'll start with this, and I don't necessarily know what this is going to need or what this is going to look like or what my layout's going to be. So do we want to do a little one-way system? I don't hate the idea of doing some kind of little one-way system here. I don't think we need to do it, but it will definitely help the trucks filter around a little bit. So what if we did, let's say, a one-lane, one-way road going? I think we can go a little further back, actually, before we start doing one-way systems. So we'll go to about here. We'll do a one-lane, one-way road going about 160 meters. And then on that road is where the actual facility is going to go. So right about there, which does it mess with the terrain? It is carving away at the terrain, but honestly, that's okay. We'll go ahead and flatten out even more of this because I don't know how expandable this thing is. I'm hoping it's very expandable. I'm also thinking it needs to go further back because this isn't going to smooth out all that nicely. So very quickly bulldoze that road and bring this guy to, let's say, about there. Let's do 176 meters. Let's flatten this bit of terrain as well and put the post sorting facility back where it belongs, right about there. Now, what can I do to you? Mail storage extension is going to give us more capacity, which I don't know if we need. Automated sorting is going to increase our speed, absolutely. And then extra loading ramps increased space allows for more mail trucks to run. So this just gives us more trucks. We'll do that because I think it's probably a good idea. A little bit of storage capacity. I don't hate the idea of doing it, and I do like the idea of the asymmetry that comes from building that. So that's what we're going to do. And then very simply, I'm going to run a road right up the side of this guy. In fact, I need to flatten a little bit more terrain just around here. This road's going to come up something like this. And then we'll have that one-way road just sort of hug the outside of the building like so. And what that's going to do is it's going to force the trucks to go all the way around and then out this way, which I know is a little pointless, but it's how we're going to do it. And I'm also thinking that what I can do is build myself just a little 2-lane road right about here and put some parking on it because we might as well. So in terms of parking, we'll go for, I don't think we need to do the biggest one. I think we can maybe get away with something like a medium parking. Well, maybe we do this one, or maybe we do the overgrounds thing like this. That's probably a bit excessive. We'll do this guy just because we can. And then we'll bring this road out just about as far as it needs to go, which is going to be to, well, right about there, but apparently it's overlapping something. There we go. So that's perfect. Honestly, that's more than enough. I'm actually slightly tempted to do 2 of these guys now that I look at it though. So let's very quickly do that. Let's see, what size are we looking at here? So 72, so 144 to about there. Bring this over and we should be able to double those up. There we go. I think that looks all right. I'm kind of okay with that as a facility. We can smooth things out. We can put some trees around it. I'm actually thinking I'm going to tear out a few of the trees so that we can kind of maybe put a path around this, kind of like what we did with the elementary school by the suburbs. But I'm curious to see what happens here. I'm also curious to see if this thing's bugged because I honestly don't remember. There's a few things in City Skylines 2 that are bugged. I'm not trying to throw shade, but it's a little hard to keep track of them sometimes. And so there we go. We now have ourselves a post sorting facility. It is a little expensive, but it has 28 of 28 employees, which I think is helped along a little bit by the fact that there is a bus stop out here. It is the same bus line that takes people. That's apparently a traffic jam. Okay. It's the same bus line that takes people out to all of this industry. It's not the one that loops around, obviously, but it is doing that same job. And my hope is that at some point we're going to see some post trucks head out and start doing their thing. I would imagine they're not going to do that until we see some employees come out here though. Or maybe this thing just doesn't work because I've been staring at it for about half an hour and all I've seen is bus after bus show up and no one get off the bus except for this guy. This is the only one, Ryan Parsons. He got here about 15 minutes, well, maybe 10 minutes ago. He walked into the facility. He does work there. You can see that is his workplace, but nothing happened. He's just going back to catch a bus to leave now, which is, I mean, fair. I mean, that one's just go. That's got no one on board anyway. This one has 2 people on board. It's also not stopping for him, which is great. So he's going to be waiting for the next bus, which is any second now, probably going to come over that hill back towards the city and completely ignore him. So good for Ryan, I guess. He's going to be waiting there for a bit. I hate to tell you that, mate. Like you are going to be waiting around for a while, to be honest with you. So Ryan, it is just how it is, really. With that said, I have decided that Ryan is going to join the ranks of Donna Noble as the only other sim that I'm following, because I completely forgot that was a thing. Donna Noble, by the way. Yes, that is the type of reference that you think it is. I've been following Donna for a while. Haven't really been following anything that she's doing. But let's have a look here. So in June 2024, moved in with Devin Landry, which is adorable. Got a new house together and then split up, which is fair enough. Moved into 540 Olive Street that same month. And then the next month found the one with Jeffrey Swanson. Got a new job in November that same year. Then by February 2025, had split up with Jeffrey. April 2025, found Jaden Hutchinson, which was great. In May, found a new house. In August, found another new house. In August, split up with Jaden. And then in September, moved in with Kieran Kendall. Got another house, September 2025, 709 Canadian Boulevard. And then, let's see, November, split up with Kieran. Fair enough. Moved somewhere else in November. Moved somewhere else in December. Moved again in December. And then January this year, moved in with Biff Ridley. So Donna's wealthy, which is great. That's a good thing, but good Lord. that's a hell of a story. Anyway, I don't think this thing works. I think the post sorting facility might be bugged. There's the bus I was talking about. That's the one I was talking about. There's only 3 on that line and the other 2 went out that way, so they're going to be coming back. Is there how are there traffic jams here? Why is there so much traffic? Oh, it's you. Yes. So the road maintenance vehicles, I've noticed when they come across a part of road that's kind of meh, they do slow down all the traffic. So that absolutely makes sense. Anyway, I think that's probably going to do us for today. The post sorting facility is unfortunately a bust, but I am in love with these new suburbs. I love how this little elementary school turned out. And honestly, I really like how this one turned out as well. It feels like I've not done all that much today, but at the same time, this is a pretty substantial expansion and we really did need those elementary schools. And hopefully this thing will start working because people are complaining more and more about the post sorting facilities. What I might need to do is just go and bulldoze the existing post offices and replace them until that bug is fixed. But regardless, that is going to do us for today. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.